I, of course, caught a lot of heat yesterday from the Bengal fans and read some of their tweets, some of the tweets that I could read. You know, Joe Burrow came on the show at the Super Bowl, and, you know, we talked about going number one and the Bengals, and is that one and the same where you're going to a team, you know, you're going number one, but you want to go to a team that's committed to winning. You know, Carson Palmer talked about the Bengals aren't committed to winning Super Bowls. His brother Jordan is working out Joe Burrow. I thought Joe was a little bit vague on the Bengals. Okay, let me just play the clip. Here is Joe Burrow. That'll put it in context. Do you want to hear from the Bengals?
Look, whenever you're in the conversation for the number one pick, it's obviously a dream come true. But I know they have a process to go through. I have a process to go through. So it's a long ways away.
But is being number one or going to the right team the most important to you?
Combination of both.
Yeah.
You know, you want to go number one, but you also want to go to a great organization that's committed to winning Super Bowls.
All right, let me bring in Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. Mike, thanks for joining us. What do you hear in that comment from Joe Burrow?
Well, I hear that at some level he is influenced by Carson Palmer. And how could you not be? The threads are right in front of us. Carson Palmer says the Bengals aren't committed to winning a Super Bowl. He quit on the Bengals. He, quote-unquote, retired until the opportunity came to trade him to the Raiders after Jason Campbell broke a collarbone back in 2011. It all worked out just perfectly, and the Bengals got a good return. But he was done. He was not going to play anymore because he was frustrated with the Bengals' lack of effort to try to win a Super Bowl. Jordan Palmer's brother is training Joe Burrow. It doesn't take many steps to get to the point where all of a sudden Joe Burrow is saying those things like, I want to play for a team that's committed to winning. And Dan, I'm a firm believer, and this is a take that becomes less and less popular every year, but I really don't care. I don't like the draft. I don't like the fact that these guys are forced to go live in a certain city, play for a certain team. They get to pick their college. I don't, and it's turned into this, it's an honor. It's not an honor. It's not. You don't get to pick where you start your NFL career. And for some of these quarterbacks, I think that getting picked by a bad organization keeps you from ever becoming the guy you could have been. I say all the time, in 1999, if Donovan McNabb had been picked by the Bengals and if Kelly Smith had been picked by the Eagles, how different would those two careers have gone? We don't know. But I think it's a factor. And I think that especially when you are a guy like Joe Burrow and you are at the top of the stack, I like it when the guy takes a stand and says, I don't want to play for the team that has the first pick, like Eli Manning did, like John Elway did. I think it needs to happen more often. And you had some quotes in your column on ProFootballTalk.com where, you know, we heard from his dad, Jimmy Burrow, Joe's dad. So he texts somebody at Fox 19 in Cincinnati. Not sure where that information is coming from, Jimmy Burrow said. We're all excited that Joe has put himself in a position to be considered as a possible high draft choice. All right, well, that doesn't say anything about the Bengals. Here's the problem. And this is, I think, driven by the way that fans react to players who buck the system, right? We applaud owners when they make savvy business deals that result in more billions being piled on top of the billions they have so they can buy a $250 million yacht and be titans of industry. When players try to make business decisions, fans get mad. Fans think players should just submit to the process. You get drafted, you happily go there. And the reality is, and you know, people who know Mike Brown firmly believe if he wants Joe Burrow, he's taking Joe Burrow. And if Joe Burrow don't like it, tough crap, Joe Burrow. Sit out the whole year and re-enter the draft. So it could be that these maneuverings, if there are any that are going to happen, fail. And you got to go to Cincinnati. And if you have to choose between going to Cincinnati or sitting out the year, maybe you just bite the bullet and go to Cincinnati, and you don't want the fans to hate you walking through the door. I think that's why they're being vague about it. They don't want to come out and say we don't want Cincinnati because in the end they may have no choice.
But also you have T.J. Houshmandzadeh, who played with the Bengals. He's working with Joe Burrow, wide receiver. And he said, hey, we're not disparaging the Bengals, but then he did say that they should strongly consider any gigantic trade offer they might get. What?
Hey, Dan, I can tell you this, and I don't like to traffic in pre-draft rumor and smoke screens because there's agendas and you know, there's always a motivation to try to get something out there, and I'm always skeptical about the things I hear. But every once in a while, you hear something that under the circumstances, given the context, given the source, you can take it to the bank. take this to the bank. Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, wants Joe Burrow. And I assume that has gotten back to Joe Burrow. So Miami and the Dolphins, Cincinnati and the Bengals, if there's a way you can work it that you get to Miami, maybe that's the better choice.
And that's why they keep it vague, because you don't know if a team wants to go up and get you, and the Dolphins have the draft capital. I asked Todd McShay yesterday, I said, if you're Joe Burrow, would you rather go to Cincinnati or Miami right now, given the state of those organizations? He said Miami. What do you think?
Miami. Oh, look. Some of the folks in Cincinnati are getting upset that the national media is making this a thing, but let's be fair about it. If you got to choose between Cincinnati and pretty much any other team right now, sorry, Bengals, but I'm picking the other team, right? Unless it's a team that has a franchise quarterback that's going to be starting for years to come, like the Chiefs. But all things being equal, I don't want to play for the Bengals. I agree with Carson Palmer's assessment. Why would Carson Palmer be lying about this? He lived it from 2003 through 2010. So, I defer to that, and it meshes with everything I've always heard about Mike Brown and the Bengals, that it's not about winning championships. It's about making money, and they make a ton of money, and they don't spend a lot of money. It's a profitable business, period. And some owners look at it that way, and some are less discreet than others about letting it be known that is the motivation, not winning championships.
Talking to Mike Florio, co-host of Pro Football Talk with Chris Sims on the NBC Sports Network. The Jags with another game in London, and the Jacksonville fans always get upset with me where I just say, hey, hold on for dear life, man, because now you got an owner saying, hey, I can make money in London, and that helps me in building this community around the stadium and all these big plans he has business-wise. At what point do you think that they only do one game in London or they add a third game in London? What happens first with the Jags?
Oh, I think it may go back to one game next year.
Okay.
I think that this really is an experiment, right? Let's see how it goes. Let's see how two games with the same team there goes. Because I had somebody who was in London reach out to me and say, look, when I go to a Jaguars game, 25% of the fans are Jaguars fans. The other people are just football fans of the other team, fans of any team. They just want to go to a game. I don't know how much of a fan base the Jaguars can build, but I think the vision for Shad Khan would be, remember how the Packers used to split their schedule between County Stadium in Milwaukee and Lambeau Field? I could see 4 games in Jacksonville, 4 games in London. Make the playoffs, host a game. You don't have to worry about all the extra logistics of taking teams to London to play a playoff game, and then you got to turn around. The road team wins, has to fly back across the ocean and maybe play a game in California. I mean, it would get ridiculous. Jacksonville's your home base. If you host playoff games, you're still the Jacksonville Jaguars. You play half your games in London. And I wouldn't be surprised, Dan, at some point if there are 2 teams that do that. So you have the 2 stadiums. You split your schedule between your U.S. base and London. I think that makes sense. Otherwise, too many logistical problems, too many hurdles, too many hardships for players. I would much prefer to moving a team to London, this concept of having up to 8 games with different teams. I think that's the better approach. But if anybody's going to establish that base there, it would be the Jaguars playing half their games. I think that's where it ends up.
The 17-game NFL regular season schedule, I'm not sure where we stand on this. And I know the players are going to vote on this, or the union's going to vote on this, but how do you think that vote would play out if I said to the entire NFL player base, you guys want to play a 17-game schedule and you'll get an extra game check?
Well, it's got to be more than an extra game check to play an extra game. There's got to be a premium there. And it can't just be extra salary cap space, because then the stars get that money. The minimums have to go up. You have to ensure that money is going to make its way to the average player who is out there grinding week in and week out. Here's what's happening, Dan, and this is in a nutshell where things stand. The union and the league have negotiated a deal. They have a deal. You have to sell the deal to your client, though. And it's like a lawsuit. You settle a lawsuit. The lawyers work out a deal, and then they go sell the deal to their clients. The NFLPA is trying to sell the deal to its client. The problem is the NFLPA is getting unexpected pushback from the client. And so there hasn't been a vote yet, because if they did a vote, they're afraid it would be no. So they're trying to work this through. And here's the reality. Here's what the union has to ask itself. Will we take a work stoppage, lockout or strike, and actually miss game checks? If you won't miss game checks and football games, then why take the best deal on the brink of missing game checks when you can take the best deal now at a time when that can be parlayed into new TV deals that are done before the presidential election hurts ratings, before a recession, which is being expected by the folks behind the curtain who are counting the money for the NFL, before the budget's getting impinged because of that. They want to turn this around now. I think D. Smith understands. When push comes to shove, these guys are going to take 17 games because they're not going to miss game checks to take a stand. So let's just do it now, and then let's get billions more on these TV deals that will be negotiated immediately after this is done. That's what he's got to sell these guys on, and he hasn't been able to do it yet.
Final question. The most interesting offseason quarterback storyline is?
Without question, where does #Tommy go? Where does he go, right? Because I think, look, Dan, in New England, he's only going back if Bill Belichick gets on a knee and applies his lips to the butt cheeks each side of Tom Brady. He's sick of dealing with being beaten down by this guy for 20 years. Bill Belichick is who he is. He wants some appreciation, some acknowledgement, some recognition. Without that, I think he's leaving. And we were throwing this around today on PFT Live because Sims knows Kyle Shanahan really well. And, I'm of the mindset that Kyle Shanahan needs to be thinking about potential upgrades at the quarterback position because championship quarterbacks make championship throws, and Garoppolo had one that he could have made and he didn't. If you're Shanahan and you pick up your cell phone and it's Tom Brady and he says, I'd really like to come play for the team that I rooted for growing up. I think that with me we can win a championship this year. What do you say if you're Kyle Shanahan? What do you say to that? What do you say? I'd be tempted to say yes if I were Kyle Shanahan.
Do you think that the Niners would have won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady?
Yes.
Okay.
Without question.
Okay.
Don't you?
Yes, I do. I do. I just don't know, because Belichick would love to get Garoppolo back, right?
Wouldn't that be something? Trade it back to Belichick, right? Wouldn't that be great?
I don't know if Belichick saw enough where he goes, no, on second thought, I'll let you keep Garoppolo in San Francisco.
Hey, Dan, in all seriousness, the way that the 49ers structure these contracts, they have until April 1 to make a decision on Garoppolo. That's an eternity in the NFL offseason. You can wait to see what plays out with Brady. You can wait to see what other free agents are out there. You could maybe make a subtle phone call to the Vikings and say, hey, if you're not going to extend Kirk Cousins, we'll take him here. Kyle Shanahan said last week the reason he didn't evaluate Patrick Mahomes in 2017 is he was certain he was going to get Kirk Cousins in free agency a year later. And that's the other thing they could do. They give Garoppolo one more year and then go get Kirk Cousins if he doesn't sign an extension in Minnesota. I'm telling you, look, I think Garoppolo is the weak link on that team. And some 49ers fans get upset. It's like, folks, you should want your team to get better. And if there's a better option out there at quarterback, why don't you want it?
I don't know if it would ever happen, but it's fun talking about it.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? It would be great. I root for chaos, right? It keeps us occupied. Give me chaos.
Do you like the off season better than the regular season?
Oh, we get more traffic, make more money in the off season. I mean, that's because there's no football. So
it's just rumor and
dynamic for
speculation.
Yeah. All the football fans, when you don't have that outlet every week, you're constantly trying to check in to see what happens. So, we'll have our biggest month of the year in March, and then in April, and then even in May, June, and July. When people don't have their football fix, they go look for whatever they can get.
Great to talk to you again, Mike. Thank you as always.
All right, Dan.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.